送咱去投产业了，也就把这个就是去产业，他说不送送去把，那别的人讲嘞，也是去产业，他说看来这样的感觉不会要嘞，我跟别人嘞，哦，那些东西这帮人送咱去的，你送了给你的人，他投上他是让这个把这个送了给你用不用嘞，这里投资。那或者是让他投资这里上把钱里，我都不管上把钱里把对，你那上面就搞的进了，我对让钱里，我让嘛对的上，我那上面让用的还好嘞，没这个东西让上啥都成有的些嘞，啥都成的让嘛的什么东西，서로 걸让嘛的，做的成做成的啊，대신에让嘛现在啥都成的，제발要嘛的，上面的。그래서 누가 가르치는 어때? 라면 셈리 대하고 거래. 라면 사족 셈을 쏘아대 정말 마디는 그니 원초 쓰고다가 개들자 쳐버리. 사계가 취요나 양 개들면은 가는 개토요 말이. 그냥 사계 취요면은 개들게 가는 개야요 말. 그래서 수보에 다잘 뛰는 등상들이 개들자 쳐버리.
So according to the Sutra path on the basis, we have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And that is embodied by the Guru, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the Guru's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha. And so within a single Guru or a single Sangha member, the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas of the 3 times are complete. And that is, the Guru is the Sangha because whatever the Guru does is the activity of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. So therefore the body is the Sangha. And the essence of the Sangha is to refrain from harming others entirely. And then the speech is the holy Dharma, and that is because through the speech, the teachings on the different levels of the path of individual liberation, the Bodhisattva path, and the Vajrayana path are transmitted. And then the mind is the Buddha, and that is especially from a relative perspective, the mind of immeasurable love. And so recognizing that whenever love and compassion arise in your own mind, then you should recognize this is actually the Guru, this is the actual Guru. And so if you recognize that, then you have really understood the qualities of the Guru. And then you will be able to give rise to bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is that mind of love, and that is the mind of the Guru. And that is the actual Guru. It is not actually the outer form of the Guru, but it's the inner mind. Because we have said that of body and mind, the mind is most important. And the Guru's mind is bodhicitta, so when bodhicitta arises in your own mind, then you can recognize that is the mind of the Guru. Or whenever patience arises, that is the mind of the Guru. Also in the Fivefold Path, there's a supplication that says, I supplicate to the Guru, that is bodhicitta. So actually amongst the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha is really very precious. Because even if you have the Buddha and the Dharma, if you do not have a Sangha, then you can't really actually use the Buddhist path, the teachings. And of course, likewise, if you don't have the Buddha and the Dharma, then the Sangha can't do much either. So we do need all 3 of them. But having all 3 of them, actually the Sangha to us is really very precious.
라이 노강 치고다고 차지. 난 노강 치고도 있나? 근데 지는 뭐 먹고 뭐 배. 봐. 또마서 접착고래. 이게 막 답답들이랑 접 수수 가는 거 줘봐. 그랬잖아. 그래서랑 타고요. 가시가 말이 파자자 파타데 달가 살에지 내 말이들이 그말 또 함치 못다 그래 또 말이 자예 감시 봐서 어디는 주바 무슨 좋아요 단도 감시 뭐를 고치 그리 이런 애들이 받을 자식 봐서 그래서 무슨 사기 사야 뭐 가리 변나 좋고 가리 변나더니 노함다를 다 받을 자식 봐서 정말 주바시 봐서 또만 뒤는 애들이 사기를 원하는 애들이 주가 사다 오라고 용나라서 봐 그렇게 썸들을 잡았더니 제가 가리고라 사건 주바였잖아요. 이 주바였더니 사람도 시바하다 또만 쓰이는구나 이런 거 맞아 그냥 무섭게 그래서 주민들라서 와 시를 다 싸우려고 다 주민 만나러 갔다 가기 뭐 뒤쪽 발에 이다가 그냥 만나러 그야 이거를 그래서 주민이 그야 이거를 그래서 다 저런 사람 만나러 갔다 그래서 다 오빠마고 만나러 야자도 야전에 이렇게 사토고래 내 말이 지세가 싸고 요에 좋아서 사람한테 싸를 돌고래 특별히 좋아서 추상이 용문한테 그런 야 나도 고고를 특별히 좋아서 사족선 특별히 좋아서 들이다때 그래서 레이지도 그랬는데 내가 딱 걸리면 좋게 원하통 원하던 게 맞아 통고를 또 사람들이 봐서 이마트 또 말이 이제요래 그래서 또 말을 그만하라고나 이 말은 또 말랐다 쌍땅 그래서 그냥 쏘았다는 그중요 너로 쏘았다고 말게 됐으니 또 가지냐 사무시유 사마유 사들 쉽게 제거해
So this is Dharma empowerment. So the empowerment is conferred based on the Dharma, and so the Dharma in general actually it represents four qualities. Number one, the Dharma represents the immeasurable palace or the mandala of the deity. Also, actually, the Dharma and a vase or a stupa all have the same meaning. You often place those objects also on your shrine. So the Dharma here represents this immeasurable palace, or it is like a very big hotel that opens up, and many deities, many guests can come and stay there. And so actually, what is important is that when you have a Dharma, for example at home, or a vase at home, that you actually also use it for your practice. For example, you make offerings to it and so forth. So you actually need to use that representation to accumulate merit. Because some people think that they obtain a vase or a Dharma and then they just put it somewhere, they put it on their shrine or so, and then they just leave it there. But actually, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't just put it somewhere, but actually you should use it to practice, to make your offerings to it and so on. And seeing it as the immeasurable palace where all the deities reside. And in that way you can make perfect offerings to it. So that's the first meaning of the Dharma. And the second way to see the Dharma is that the Dharma also represents the deity itself. Even if you have millions of deities, Buddhas offer 3 times, they all are represented by that Dharma. They all can fit in that Dharma. And then the third quality of the Dharma is that it also represents an offering. So just like in a big hotel, when a hotel opens up, then whatever is desired, all desirable, all sense pleasures can be found in that hotel. And so likewise in that Dharma, it represents the countless offering gods and goddesses who emanate and make various inconceivable offerings, whatever is needed and desired. So the Dharma itself also becomes an offering. And then the fourth quality is that the Dharma also represents the blessing, and that is normally after an empowerment or a practice, when the Dharma is made out of some dough, first of all, it has been consecrated for some time, and then in the end, we are eating part of that dough, and then the dough is filled with these blessings. And so to represent that, we also receive the blessing pills, like the Mani pills, for example. Later on, you also receive a little pouch of blessing pills. There is those Mani pills that are made in Dharamsala and so on. And the important thing about those is that you actually have to eat them. Often what Tibetans especially do is they keep them like a blessing, and again they put them somewhere, but they never actually eat them. So you actually should eat them and pass them around, give them to others to eat, because those blessing pills are called liberation upon tasting. So they need to be tasted, they need to be eaten. There's different kinds of liberation. For example, there's liberation by hearing. That is, we listen to Dharma teachings or prayers and so on. So there are certain things that we need to hear. And then there are certain things that we need to taste, like those blessing pills. Or bodhicitta, that is a liberation of the mind and so on. And there's liberation by touch and seeing and so forth. So each liberation has its own use, and the use of those blessing pills is liberation by tasting. So you should eat them in the morning and evening, while also practicing the Om Ahum Vajra recitation. So that's the fourth meaning of the Dorma. It represents the blessings. Also at home, if you have a Dorma or a vase or a stupa on your shrine, then use this representation for your practice. For example, practice Zambalam or the smoke offering, supplicate to it, make offerings to it, and so on. And as a result, it is said all desires and needs and wants will be fulfilled. So when you do these practices, think that within that vase or that Dorma, the deity is actually contained. English. As the enlightened energy of the glorious Guru, the vase water of joy enters the drop of the body at my crown. May the imprints of the waking state be purified. So now think that the deities who abide in the sky before you are reflected in this image that is right on top of the Dharma, which is like a mirror. And so within that mirror, the deities abiding in space are reflected. And then think that from this mirror, from this image then on the Dharma, the deities, 3 places are marked with Om, Ah, and Hung. And first, from the Om, white light radiates, and it touches all the disciples and the entire universe and all beings, and it renders them, transforms them into a rainbow-like form that is appearing yet empty. So you can see everything appearing, but it all lacks any substantial nature. So this is the empowerment of the generation stage. You have received the base empowerment. The stains of the 3 non-virtuous actions committed with the body, such as killing and the imprints of the waking state, are purified, and you are empowered to practice the generation stage. The seed-like imprint of the Nirmanakaya is planted into your mind stream. As a result, you will have the fortune to accomplish the Vajra body. The next to receive the secret empowerment, please repeat. As the speech of perfect enjoyment enters the speech drop at my throat, may the blissful fire of the secret empowerment annihilate and incinerate the imprints of the dream state. And so then next, think that from the throat, red light radiates and it dissolves into your throat, and that is the nectar empowerment. So it is then like a red nectar that dissolves into your throat, and then think that it fills up all the channels in your body, and it confers blessings upon, consecrates the channels and the elements in your body. And as a result of that, ordinary thoughts stop, and when ordinary thoughts stop, an experience of great bliss arises. And that experience of great bliss should be understood to be the blissful state of your own true nature, of your own mind. You have received the secret empowerment. The defilements of the four non-virtuous actions of speech, such as telling lies, and the imprints of the dream state are purified, and you are empowered to practice the stages of liberating the upper gates. The seed-like imprint of the Sambhogakaya is planted into your mind stream. As a result, you will have the fortune to accomplish Vajra speech. Om Shri Ha Ha Ho Hong Pei. 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 Le fond de la série. Parti Toxon, there's a part that's all your. So now think that around the Hung syllable, you have received a mantra garland, and this empowers you, authorizes you to recite the mantra.
Zahn, that's also. It's all about what I got born at some. Not that some champion. That's right. Oh, yeah. Lama, Meto, Dagi, Nimkar, Ije, Tilela, Niwar, Shokne, Shira, Ishije, Ninpo, Mumba, Somewhere,
Next, in order to receive the wisdom, knowledge, empowerment, please repeat. As the non-conceptual, Dharmakaya nature of the Guru enters the mind drop at my heart, may awareness and wisdom clear away the darkness of the deep sleep state.
It's over the Beloma, Holo, my in the Savannah was a move of the nobody to put on the same government by June. So, you got the Bembago, took out the home of the move of the drill. You know, there was there for him out for way. He did to my house on the 7 of Kata that day. Not long in the center, or else.
And the next thing that from the heart, blue, the whole of the heart, blue light radiates, and it touches your heart, and as it dissolves into your heart, think that all dualistic grasping is cleared away, and you recognize the space-like state of the mind that is free of all concepts, free of all thinking.
이 시럽이 지금 봐봐 토끼 저거에서 나 셈라서 뭐 나는 그래 내가 잡았다 이 독가 내가 그랬지만야 너 오버 대화 제물 뭐 공부하러 와 그거 사온 거야 그거 사온도 빠차게 야 내가 톡톡 되는 거 까비드세 봐야 넣어서
You have received the wisdom, knowledge, empowerment. The defilements of the three non-virtuous actions of the mind, such as covetousness and the imprints of the deep sleep state, are purified, and you are empowered to practice the stages of great bliss related to the lower gates. The seed-like imprint of the Dharmakaya is planted into your mind stream. As a result, you will have the fortune to accomplish the Vajra mind.
No, why you have to so around 봄이 가와 폭발도
And in order to receive the fourth empowerment, please repeat. As the innate protector of all beings, enters the wisdom drop at my navel, may the empowerment of great wisdom and knowledge bestow unchanging joy.
그러니까 오늘날 뛰어요 저 세포 주의들이 라가 뛰어하는 탐송 뛰어하는 탐리들이 다 상기적인 이상게 용서가 톱송 사용 이종화 톱송 그래서
And so here you visualize that from the navel of the deity in the Dormam, yellow light radiates and it dissolves into your navel. And as it dissolves into your navel, think that you have now received all the enlightened qualities of the Buddhas. So that is the empowerment of enlightened qualities.
또 뭐지들은 뭐지요 또 와가지고 버티는 남게 남다게 담좀 호텔라 또 그냥 나도 오면 위서 열라봐 이제 뭐돼도 나야 이번에도 어디 왕게 봐 세금 왕거가 더 무슨 다비들은 저거만 방 보는 데가 주지만 양 왕게 봐더 사자체 뭐 선도 보마라 왕원 입구 사오가 보자 그러자 내가 시도 전에 뭐 근데 바닥까지 있어서 봐야 넣어서
You have received the fourth word empowerment, the defilements of grasping at the three doors as separate, and the imprints of the transference state are purified. You are empowered to meditate on Mahamudra. The seed-like imprint of the Svabhavika Kaya is planted into your mind stream. As a result, you will have the fortune to accomplish Vajra wisdom.
왕기 봐서 왕기들이 급전인데 마치 뭐 요리 왕기를 뒤니 근데 왕통기 가다 또 맞지 모르더니 그러니까 왕기 뒤쪽 거라래 드니 니감이 러시아는 이게 홍요사 홍쪽이 제 그랬더니 제가 그러더니나 여기를 당시에는 살았고 20살인데 부족을 또 남들이 사주천들 배워요 살았 당시 기억감 밑에 들어가서 말해서 하다 짜지 못하고 그래.
So that is the fourth empowerment. And so the four empowerments are related to the four kayas, and they are conferred on the basis of the dharma. And so to represent that, then in the end we also receive another pill to eat. When you eat this pill, swallow it as a whole and think that within it is a syllable home. And actually, this is how you can think about the other blessing pills too. Anything that you taste, and think that it is endowed with the blessings of the wisdom of the deities, the blessings of bodhicitta. So on the relative level, it appears as this pill, but ultimately it is really related to the mind of bodhicitta. So really representing the blessings of bodhicitta. And for this reason, any of these blessing pills, you should not just regard them as something like meaningless or ordinary, but really regard them as something very precious. So we have just mentioned in stages those four states that most are familiar with. So we have said there is the waking state, there is the dream state, the deep sleep state, and the state of transference of consciousness. And so most of you are familiar with those four states. For example, the waking state, it refers to the various perceptions that we have while we are awake during the daytime. And normally we believe that what appears to us in the waking state, our perceptions, are real. That is how it appears to us. And because of perceiving things as really existing the way they appear to us, the mind becomes confused. The mind is confused because it fixates on the true substantial existence of what appears to you, and then the labels that you label those appearances with. So that is the confusion. And so there is those four times, four kind of states that are being purified. And actually there is three states, three times when you actually come to the basis, the fundamental nature of the mind. And that is now in the deep sleep state. it is during sexual union, and it is at the time of death when the consciousness transfers. That is when you come to the actual nature of the mind. So when you fall asleep, for example, when you come to the dream state, first the perceptions of the waking state, the daytime, they come to an end. And at this time, you can actually understand the qualities of the Sambhogakaya. You realize that the body, actually, the physical activities of this life, they come to a cessation, while in the dream state, the mind continues on to engage in all kinds of activities. And so based on that knowledge, you can understand the qualities of the Sambhogakaya form of the deity. And so then you come to the deep sleep state after you have dreamt. And that is when you come to the actual fundamental nature of the mind. And so we have said at those three times, anyone comes to the actual nature of their mind. And so then, now when you recognize the luminosity of the deep sleep state, then that recognition is related to this fourth empowerment here. And when you recognize that, you can attain enlightenment after death in the first bardo in the nature of the Dharmakaya. Or if not, then in the second bardo in the nature of the Sambhogakaya. And that is as a result of having practiced the deity, the generation stage or the visualization. And so you train in that by remembering the deity every time you wake up from sleeping. If you're really able to remember the deity every time you wake up, then certainly you will have the freedom of attaining enlightenment in the nature of that deity that comes to your mind after death. And at that time it is just like going onto an airplane, which is that deity. And going to that state is Pure Land. And then, so the third time of attaining enlightenment, that is the third bardo, and that is through having cultivated bodhicitta. So in that way, that also relates to the various Pova practices that we do that purify or block the entrance to the various kinds of birth in the 6 realms of samsara. So now we have said in those 3 times you come to the actual nature of the mind. The actual nature of mind is completely pure. And even though we actually come there, we actually come to our true nature and we don't recognize it. For example, also in the bardo state, you don't recognize, it's like you come to see your mother, but you don't recognize your mother. And you are afraid. And so for this reason, you continue to wander in the bardo or in samsara. And so recognizing it is called the recognizing of luminosity, which is the merging of the mother and son luminosity. So then in the bardo, when you recognize those appearances, like recognizing your mother, then you attain enlightenment in that state. So that is when you recognize that all appearances are the natural state of your mind, and that naturally brings to an end all confused perceptions, and you attain enlightenment as a Dharmakaya or Sambhogakaya. So that is a very important point, and really actually that is the meaning of the empowerment. And if you really understand the meaning of the empowerment, then you will be free of any doubts regarding the empowerment. And so that is why to understand this is very important.
사격지 보지 마세요. 오반이 자시고 선발에 이렇게 강을 되는데 낙하들에 다다들랑 생다 낙하에 똑같이 있잖아요. 오라 때나 요락토가 민다토가 말이 세부생각 때나 남자들 마음과 맞을 이번에 참 채우는 요제나 낙하다를 직접 요말 너희들 싸우고 요래 지금 본에서 왔는데 싸우고 나가다가 되는 게 아니고 샤유무로래 몸이 딱히 살이 봐도 이제 말이야 요말에 토스처럼 되나 선택에 진짜 다지 대통령 희망하고 싸이가 말 세분대로 광클이 맨 다듬어도 맨 매일 성질이 송오게 돼서 말해 다처럼 너도 봐시나 그냥 시라라 통계를 골수 종자 조금 호환거나 좀 스럽시는 역사이 시라 통계를 생각을
And then fourth is the practice of Mahamudra. If the massing clouds of discursive thoughts do not vanish in the open sky of mind itself, the stars and planets of the two wisdoms will not shine. Thus apply your mind earnestly in non-conceptuality. And so now the practice of Mahamudra, as mentioned before, it is the state of emptiness that is vast. For example, like the sky. In essence, your own mind and the expanse of the sky are the same. And so when you look at your mind and try to describe its essence, if you speak about it in affirming terms, it exists, then again, you can't find anything. So it can neither said to be existing nor non-existing. So when you directly look at your mind first, mind looks at itself and all thoughts stop. There are no thoughts of the past or the future. Then look at that mind, and when you try to explain it in terms of what it is, then it becomes like space. It is nothing at all. But then when you say then it doesn't exist, again there is this clarity. There is a clear consciousness that engages in all these activities of samsara and nirvana, from which all phenomena arise clearly. So the nature of mind transcends those extremes of existence and non-existence. It cannot be expressed in any way. It can only be understood by directly viewing your own mind. And when you see it and you decide upon it without any doubt, then there is no need to seek out any other explanations on its nature. And once you have decided upon it, again, you cannot call it any name. It cannot be labeled. Lord Jigten Sumgons had said it has no name. So actually at this point, we should do a brief meditation for this part of the empowerment. But then also it's time to have lunch because we are late for lunch. So let's briefly meditate and then dedicate and then go to lunch and continue the empowerment in the afternoon.
Dorjee,
May I and all sentient beings so here it says, realize the greatest bliss, the supreme bliss, and that supreme bliss is the unchanging bliss. represented by Samantabhadra or Vajradhara. It is the perfection of primordial wisdom. And primordial wisdom is given that name because it has been there since primordial times, since all times. It has always been there, and it will always be there in all future times. And it is just the present clear awareness, and that is always there. It always has been there and always will be there. And when you know its nature, you see there is no duality. For as long as you do see a duality, it is called the consciousness, or the rational consciousness. Actually, Milarepa clearly explained the difference between that consciousness and primordial wisdom. So then I'm thus supplicating, think that the Dharma, the Guru, and the Yidam Yabyum transform into light, and as the light dissolves into the point between your eyebrows, rest within the empty essence of all conceptual elaborations. So now at first we speak about something that exists, and then next it goes out of existence, it disappears. So actually what has happened here? So what seems to exist at first is like a block of ice, and when the ice has melted, the ice is gone, it has merged with the ocean water, non-dually. The ice is gone, but it's still there, being one with the ocean water. So from the perspective of the fundamental nature of mind, these appearances of true existence are confused perceptions. And so that is like an ice block, and when that ice melts with the warmth of bodhicitta, then it merges to be non-dual with the Buddha mind. So then, even though the water still is there, the ocean is there is no more duality. Then it says, Lord Maitreya said, there is nothing to be clarified, there is not the slightest thing to be placed. Look perfectly at your true nature, and when you see it, you will finally be freed. So there is nothing to be clarified. So these words are very important actually. There is nothing to be clarified means that when you look at the mind that is free of all thoughts, and the mind is very clear, and you see with space-like nature, with great clarity, in that state, it is perfect as it is, and there is nothing that need to be removed or cleared away, no affliction that need to be cleared away from that state. And likewise, there is nothing to be placed, that is, there is not the slightest enlightened quality to be placed into that state. It is perfect as it is, or it is primordial purity. And so within that state, then you need to continue to remain in meditation. And so then here at this point, we go on to our activities, our daily activities. So now we are going on to eat our lunch. And in that way, seeing it without duality in this way, the eating of our food becomes actually a feast or talk offering. So that is when there is no duality, then you partake of it from within a state of primordial wisdom. So now we shall take a break.
Zahn Lord Rinpoche.
Page is that on? She wants us to read this.
One Kachi Kaka Maniba, Tata Mazi Kachi, Tata Session. One Jima, the Yakari, 10 years old. There's a summer paper, couple for the Yakata, and one young, then petrol cause all in.
So actually, according to the program that Professor Rinpoche arranged, we had the empowerment scheduled for the morning and teachings on the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra in the afternoon. And so, in general, for someone like myself who doesn't have a lot of learning and good qualities, it is actually hard to even separate it like that, the teachings and the empowerment. And the Fivefold Path is also mainly something that needs to be actually practiced. But now, the way we will do that is that we still have to complete the empowerment, and we will not have it separate. So we will not have the blessing of the empowerment and the teachings separate. So Rinpoche will go ahead and give a brief instruction on the root verses on the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra. And then, if some of you have to leave earlier, only here for the empowerment, then you can, since you can come up in the meantime to receive a blessing. And then the general blessing for everyone else who stays, then will be given in the end, if you want to offer a kata in the end and so on. And together with that, at the same time, you will also receive the blessing and the remainder of the empowerment. And so actually, this is a Monlam, a prayer ceremony. So prayer is really most important. And Professor Rinpoche has arranged those, and has also translated those prayers, have them all prepared, those books. And so we should focus really on the prayers that should be done at the Monlam. But so anyways, Rinpoche will give a very brief instruction on the root verses of the Fivefold Path.
다음에 기록관 배를 머리 좋은 일이 없지 말이야. 매도 사용 따고 자타가는 일이. 얘는 호화과 단체에 그랬더니 다음에 기록 두 번을 마시기 전에 뭐 시키고 나서 매도 사용을 한동안 폴라라고 그래. 대회들이 상하가 다시 왔는데다 매도 사용 따고 주었는데 이 매도 용이 로아를 생긴 단체를 매도 용이 요래 사용을 주었는데 그 대세는 정말 그래서 또 잠사몽가 되는 양식을 하는데 내가 가려도 말하는 좋게 가려도 이렇게 상관없다는 것들이 가장 가진 게 돈다 치고 요래지.
So this morning, when we spoke about the Yidam deity in the generation stage, there was one thing still that is left to be mentioned about how to see everything that appears and exists as the divine form of the deity. So everything that appears and exists is the outer universe, the outer world, that is composed of the 5 elements. And then there are the sentient beings within that world, and within their minds there are the 5 afflictive emotions. And so the person, the body of one person actually represents the entire outer universe. So the outer universe is complete within one person's body, and all sentient beings are complete within one person's mind. So one person's body and mind represents the entire universe and all beings. And so within samsaric existence, sentient beings live in the 6 realms or the 3 worlds of samsara. There are many sentient beings, but their afflictive emotions, the 5 poisons, are exactly the same. For example, little insect, even a very subtle animal, a creature. Their mind is the same. The 5 afflictive emotions are the same. And so if that mind encounters the condition of the relative bodhicitta, then the mind becomes the nature of the 6 paramitas. And if that mind gives rise to the ultimate bodhicitta, then it ripens into the 5 wisdoms. The empowerment is therefore also called the ripening empowerment. So first there is, it's like the growing of a seed into a flower. First there is the seed, and the seed is like our precious human body. Actually one flower produces a lot of seeds, but if you just take one seed and you care for it well, you plant it into the ground and you give it water and so on, then slowly the seed will grow into a sprout and then into a flower. And so that is just like a human being who encounters the holy Dharma and then practices, their life becomes meaningful. It is like you're tending, you're caring for that seed of a flower to make it grow. And then ordinary samsaric sentient beings, they do not practice the Dharma, they only are concerned with this life in this world. And so for the most part, the seeds that beings have, which is their own mind, becomes spoiled. And so the Vajrayana, the secret mantra, provides skillful means to care for that seed of a flower. And so within that seed, actually, all the qualities of the flower already are complete. And ultimately, that seed is the mind of all beings. All beings in the 6 realms of samsara have that same mind, they have the same seed. And then if one engages in practice, that seed will ripen. And so first we need to reflect on what is the fruition, why do we practice the Fivefold Path, and what are the shortcomings of not engaging in practice. So first we learn how meaningful this Fivefold Path of Mahamudra actually is.
사속sem을 묘미는 사속sem을 셈미는 셈을 다니와 사바셈을 봐지는들이 가지는 생긴다 불러 괜찮아 때문에 나이도 만들면 리바를 차라리 사바세미 바티스 미나 들이 때는 그 루미인데 들이 이담을 하고 봐서 까들이 다 거는 놈 들이 이담을 하지 그래서 하고 말들이 다 루미 봐서 그냥 장고 거래 다원을 감자를 살 거다 몰라 라기 상관이 이제 람세 때는 거들 다 거들 때문에 들이 맞던 그 양장한테 딱 보면 들이 하람 잘 초월에다가 내 공을 잡고 살고 그래. 그래서 와는 약을 주고 살고 약을 좋아하고 이거래. 그때 당시랑 우선 살고나 까들이 대까지 양장한테 살때 이제 선교가 되는 양장한테 살 양장한테 살면 일날 사지 당 대봤음 얘는 일 잡고 싸우고 이러래. 대봤음도 가능하더래. 신과 세와 대봤음도 하고 그래. 이렇게 자초다를 때라 좀 자초다를 딱 가르치는 오 선수 차와지 단 말이지 자초다를 라기는 지금서 투사가 되면서 그 말이 로크 자초다를 성을 자초다를 나타내라 시험이 시작했더니 선진사기 동당을 우리 선을 대시고 그런 그래가지고 고독을 그리 공동도 다 고쳐라더니 시험이 선진사기 감당 남아시와 당시 체행들이로래 저를 통계라더니 마도가 생기까지 동해리 기계로래 저를 통계에 그리고 저들이 사족선도 말하는 나중에가 차르더니 정말 나중에 협상을 해서를 다 빠르게 매서 봤더니 어저 빼영 듣고요래 대사를 재밌더니 밤에서 바탕을 멤버십 받았더니 발꽃이 나더라도 새를 찾는 들이 싸고 자랐더니 싸와지 나가 싸와지 손을 차는 거에 남이 바빠서 들이 잘로 뛰었더니 배나 약간 열 싸와 탐지들이 좀 맞아 초선 줘봐라서 지 잘로 뛰네 그래서 대탐지 라니 사이동을 요래 당근 하와 차는 거에 마다를 좀 걸려 마다를 라는데 데려지 잡아서 나와 이제는 차장 가서 봐 체지사와들 많고를 받쳐 차를 많이 사는 거 되지 파나 다도 마다리 차지 다 빠삭거든 다 빠진 바지 데려좀 치고 이 이마 저들이 선택지도 못해 나가 사실 무슨 내란 말에서 이렇게 선택지도 못 하는 게 상황을 때 상속 생각을 라이센 이거 세면 잡아들더니 라면서 그런 거 차지고 하고는 이메와 하고는 사람 당을 시리지 마마 보제다 그 말이면 그 그거래 그래서 저마다 넣었어 그래 저마다 때라 하고 잠깐까지 죽은 남 가다가 놓고 자 송다 넣었어 그때 무슨 그 알아 봐 갑자기 사람을 이렇게 지도를 박차다 미리 박차다 이거를 연말에 때나 발생한다고 내가 와서 나서라면 때다 그러면서 지금은 이렇게 사자 소복하고 이렇게 소치 좀 보도록 도착이 이렇게 가보도 다 되지까지 유사삼 나하게 나고 이제 똑같다고 아까 내 생각하기 배운 내와 죽고 내와 죽고 내 속으로래 근데 도착이 다 돼서 팔죠 그리고 호화를 정확히 동해 요래 이거 대화도 그게 각각 손나 대답은 양식 농토고 요래 대라 대답을 써먹다 무슨 일이라고 이 시기에 토고 요래
So we have received the empowerment, which we have called it is the ripening empowerment. And we have mentioned before that the mind ripens mainly when we give rise to bodhicitta. Because when you give rise to bodhicitta, then the self, this concept of the self is absent. So finally, immeasurable love must arise in the mind. And that is when at all times you only are concerned about sentient beings and there is no thought of the self. So at that time, immeasurable love has fully matured. And so then that is how we ripen the mind. And then we ripen the body by visualizing the form of the Idam deity. That is called the practice of the generation stage. So I already mentioned a bit about that before. In order to ripen the body, so to visualize the deity, we first need to receive an empowerment. And then we visualize the form of the deity, any Idam deity. So first you look at an image of the deity, and then close your eyes and have that image appear in your mind. And then repeat that again and again. And try to visualize the deity without any other thoughts in the mind. First, in the beginning, a vague image of the deity appears in your mind. For example, if it's a wrathful deity, then you might see the fire masses. Or if it's a peaceful deity, you might see the rainbow sphere around the deity. And actually, visualizing the rainbow sphere, the deity in the rainbow sphere is actually, it helps your visualization to visualize the rainbow sphere. And so then, now the deity appears in your mind in that way again and again, and you recognize gradually that what appears, this visualization, that image is actually your own mind. It is the self-light of your own mind appearing. So what appears is your own mind. And then the way that it becomes more clear, this visualization, is when you understand the qualities of the deity. So therefore, in the beginning, we develop the three kinds of faith in the deity. And so in that way, then the deity, the visualization becomes also more clear. And so for understanding the qualities of the deity, basically, there are three main qualities. The deity has the quality of omniscient wisdom. And then secondly, the deity has compassion and love. And also thirdly, the deity has the power to grant protection. And so then, when the deity appears, it appears like a rainbow. And then one might think that, oh, what appears is not the real deity, it's just some rainbow-like colors. And people think that there must be some real deity that I can actually meet and directly encounter someone like a person. But that is not how it is, because the Sambhogakaya nature is in fact like a rainbow. And so now the qualities of the deity, and the deity has the quality of omniscient wisdom. And that is now from an ultimate perspective, actually our own Buddha nature is already connected to the deity. So the deity obviously knows our mind because ultimately is one with our own Buddha nature. But then the omniscient wisdom on the relative level is that the deity represents the pure aspect of the mind. And that pure aspect of mind knows the suffering and the minds of all sentient beings. And then the second quality is loving compassion, and that is the deity also then has great compassion for sentient beings who have not realized the nature of their mind. And then the third quality is the power to grant protection, and that is, actually how you're protected is that when you never separate from bodhicitta, self-grasping will disappear. And what remains is your natural, pure state of mind. And actually, when you think about it, it really actually even makes logical sense how the deity, how your mind ripens as the deity. So you look at the image and have that image appear in your mind again and again until it gradually becomes clear. And then that clear appearance of the deity appears like a rainbow. Then also, when the deity appears clearly, you should recollect the pure meaning of the deity. That means the appearance of the deity, the color and the ornaments and so on. Each part of the deity represents a certain quality in the deity's mind. For example, the practices of the paramitas of generosity, ethical discipline, and patience, and so forth. They all manifest as the appearance of the deity. So that is the recollection of purity. And so then also we reflect on the faults of impure perception. And for as long as we grasp at this impure body, we develop many thoughts of attachment and aversion, of closeness to friends and hatred towards enemies and so on. And we are constantly preoccupied with our worldly activities. And we continue to form more and more habitual patterns within our minds. And that leads us to wander endlessly in samsara. And so for now, we have both pure and impure aspects coexisting. So the second point is, after visualizing clearly, secondly, you recollect the purity. And then the third step of the generation stage is the divine pride or the confidence, where you actually determine, am I really the deity or not? And you determine that, first of all, based on your own Buddha nature. Your true, pure nature is actually the deity. And then from within that state of your pure Buddha nature, the deity, the form of the deity arises. And what arises, what appears to you, is the natural radiance, the luminosity of your own mind. So the appearance of the deity in your mind is non-dual from your own mind. It is your own mind. So you must recognize that the appearing deity in your visualization is the radiance of your own mind. The deity arises from your own mind. And so this is how you visualize the deity and then recite the mantra, accumulating many mantras. And finally, you ripen into the pure illusory form and the pure lens of the deity. So the Dharmakaya nature of the deity is like space, and the Sambhogakaya nature is the appearance of the deity appearing like a rainbow. And that can be actually accomplished through the power of your own mind. And so what happens when the deity is accomplished is that you simply forget about your ordinary body and your ordinary habitual imprints. They are all completely gone for as long as the visualization of the deity is clear in your mind. For example, some people say that when they do a Drupon, for example, in a retreat, they say that during the Drupon, while in the Drupon, I feel very happy. But then when I get out of the Drupon, in the end, the difficulties come in, and then again, there is so much suffering. And so that is because during the time of the Drupon, you focus your body on the deity and your speech on the mantra. So for the time being, you have stopped all ordinary grasping at sound and form, and you have come to the natural state of your mind. So what you have experienced as happiness is actually the great bliss of the Dharmakaya. But then what happens in the end of the Drupon is that then once you're done with the Drupon, you just throw it all away, like taking off your clothes, and you continue to wander in samsara like before. And so then again, there is the same suffering as before. Then again, there is experiences of suffering and happiness, all kinds of feelings arising. So you can actually experience how that really happens by looking at your own mind. And if you really think about this point, then you will be able to really develop trust.
다들 와면은 되게 착하게 이거를 들으니까 이 시대는 치차현 도지 나 도지는 고가당 총 그걸 탈때서 투론 양대 파서 그때가 이 시대로 가는 데야 그다음부터 막 하고는 나시도 뭐 첫째가 되는 나시도 뭐 통은 나시 거랑 어떤 말이지 그냥 바다를 나기님을 봤다고 그래 나기님이랑 보는 시차한 거래 나기님 통하고 남시 키 타지송 이게 똑똑 가르치더니 자선을 받으라는 거 무슨 도사를 갖다도 많이 봐 도사를 오래 라라라는 게 사회 쪽은 약간 뭐 남는 거 그랬나 참 라기 똑같이 보러 롱에는 맞아 오면 맞지 정말 랑소나 certain things 근데 다 주제 최선을 받으신 거예요. 그냥 똑같이 로켓이 요소 인결이 되는 정도의 대외에 드는 통나 되는 사동수 쪽 같은데 일반화되는데 최선을 맞춰하는 거예요. 그런 생각이 되네. 그래서 독이 좀 가당성은 기반이 독이 기반이 그래서 제시해봐 버전해봐 강은 버전해봐 레스하는 성수는 성은하고 시야의 과장 타임이요. 사지의 공방성도 독기장 공방성은 고자들을 하면 이 성수는 서로 독도를 하면 제라기 삭신에서는 대대가가 직접 구별적으로 특대 정도요. 제가 가다 도지 이렇게 강을 가면서 파종을 받아 철가 안 맞거나 돌아가야 합니다. 도지기 뭐가 나가다를 통한 깍지에 사람들이 전당파상을 통한 가당성 이렇게 탈때 통은 좀 탐시다 각축이 요래 이제 그 코로 통하게 각축이 요래 탈때 시와에 내와치 못 주고도 내와치 고서 그러면 대파는 무슨 파이를 대파로 말이지 용홍미게 예리고게 예시사 당시 시대 시시사서 통원의 요리 마과 요리 같은 요리 파이를 말이지 용홍으로 말이잖아 선나 대소 말이지 한람적게 나타내게
So there is another line here from the empowerment text that we didn't talk about yet. So it says, primordial wisdom is greatly subtle. It is like the center of the sky, like a vajra. It is immaculate perfection. It is peace. You are your own father. So these are the vajra verses from the empowerment. First, it said, primordial wisdom is greatly subtle. And so that is when you actually see the essence of your consciousness, then that is called the primordial wisdom. So when you look at your mind and you see it as it is, you see that its essence is empty like the sky, and there is no duality between self and other, then that mind is then called primordial wisdom. But if you see a duality, then that mind is called the consciousness. And everyone has a consciousness. It pervades all beings. Everyone has a consciousness. And it's always there, but still we can't see it. It is very difficult to actually see the nature of your consciousness. So that is why here it says it is very subtle, greatly subtle. It is difficult to see. And it is difficult to see because it transcends the intellect. We want to see everything, understand things with the intellect, but this awareness lies beyond the intellect. And that is why we cannot see it. It's difficult to see. So it is very subtle. It is always there, but we cannot recognize it. And it is also subtle in that it is like the sky, like space. So it says it is like the center of the sky. And so it is there, but it is not an object of analysis. You cannot understand it through any kind of conceptualization, any kind of examination at all. It is something that you can only decide upon through your personal experience, and to determine that this is what it is without any doubts within the mind. So we do actually see the nature of mind, but we do not actually determine. We have doubts about it. And so the way to clear away those doubts is through the devotion, to the Guru. For example, when you practice Mahamudra and you develop devotion in the Guru, with devotion in the Guru, then sometimes just naturally you just know the nature of your mind. Or also when you, in the practice of Dzogchen, for example, it is also actually said that this natural state can actually not be pointed out by anyone at all, by any person. When we speak about pointing it out, what really happens is a mere indication of how it is, but it is actually not a direct experience. And the doubt can only be cleared away through the direct experience. And it is gained through developing devotion to the Guru and also compassion for sentient beings. And so then what you see, when you see the actual nature of the mind, is this clear and empty state. That, and actually what you see is what you then feel you have always seen, it's always been there, but at that point there is no more doubts about it, and that is due to the blessings of the Guru. And so then it says it is like a vajra, because a vajra is adamantine, it is invincible. Nothing can destroy a vajra. But it can pierce through everything, but nothing can pierce the vajra. And so when you see the space-like nature of the mind, this is how it becomes, the experience. Clear and empty like a vajra. And then it says it is also immaculate, perfection. So when you see the nature of mind, then it is naturally free from the faults of samsara, because there is no more dualistic grasping, so there cannot be a fault. So it is immaculate perfection. And it is peace. Peace here is the peaceful, blissful state of the Dharmakaya. So that, for example, also is it is the state of the Buddha, invincible state of the Buddha Vajradhara. That is beyond birth and death. It is unchanging, ever unchanging. And even if you go to the three lower realms, it never becomes spoiled. And even when you attain enlightenment, it still hasn't changed in any way. It hasn't gotten any better. That is the unchanging state, nature of Vajradhara. It's called Vajradhara. Also in the Ganges and Mahamudra teachings, it is said that it is unstained, undefiled by the stains of virtue and non-virtue, and so forth. So that is this greatly blissful non-dual state. And then lastly, it says, you are your own father. So we all have a father, but this nature doesn't have a father. What that means is it has no source, no origin. So it is primordial awareness and primordial wisdom. It has been there since all times, since beginningless times, and it is all-knowing by nature. So it has always been there, and it will always be there. There is no end to it. And because of that, it also has no source, no arising ground. So therefore, in other words, it has no father. That is, your mind has no origin.
사키 같은 안 참자들 다들 원고를 이제 속도사 사키 속도사 말이 속도사 사마생리를 속도할 거래 사마생리를 속도하면 인기성이 장기 제거를 하는 뭐는 이게 대비들이 선택하고 가고 시험을 저희 내려가고 거기에 속도사의 사마생리를 해서
So it says that in the root verse that you should apply yourself resting within a state free of grasping, and that is the perfect, complete state of Mahamudra. And so Mahamudra, therefore, is something that must be habituated through practice. And so when you meditate, you rest within your natural state and you look at the mind directly. And whatever thought arises, you let it be without pursuing it. So you do not grasp at whatever arises. And if you just let it be, then the thought will again dissipate, just like a wave from water. So that is all included within this one sentence on Mahamudra. Basically, you remain within a state that is free from grasping. Or it says you remain within a state of non-conceptuality. And so non-conceptuality here means that, in fact, thoughts arise, but you do not grasp at the thoughts. You let them be without pursuing them. And then they will naturally dissolve, and as they dissolve, you come back to the natural state of the mind. So when you rest within that state without fixating on anything, there is a time when all thoughts will stop and no future thought arises. And for a moment then you might glimpse the essence of mind in that space between the thoughts. And then gradually you habituate to that. So slowly this space of seeing increases as you habituate. And so that should be enough for the instructions on Mahamudra, because actually it is something that must be practiced, habituated. And actually, and furthermore, what we really need to make an effort in is in fact not Mahamudra, but we need to pay more emphasis, put our emphasis, our focus more on developing immeasurable love. When immeasurable love arises, then compassion will also naturally arise. And when it arises, the ice block of your mind will just naturally melt. So now when it comes to our Dharma practice, therefore what we really need to make an effort in is not the meditation or focus too much on Mahamudra, but we really need to make an effort in developing immeasurable love.
토지 빈전 오버로 모람께서 돌마 제나 구두를 여러분 경우에 예모하는 멘트로서 되게 소 이시발 발이 just 넘버 토서는 여기 이시 소 어서 실제로 just 넘버 소지가 감이 담배도 선도 사원다를 오 사원다는데 현대 발이 현이 이거예요. 현 공마 자본주의 취업과 자본주의 취업 탐지 현 공마 근정가래 현 가세 취업한테 사무실 자체를 자체를 고 취업들한테 자본주의 쪽으로 정말에 현 공마 대박이면 따다 대선 제도를 넣어서 현 공마 대박이고 현 공마 동네를 쌓듯이 인기 제도를 그래서 실제 속자지가 인기나 인기적인 속차들 파편을 좀 소소차 필요를 예를 들어서 남도 소지마대 대파는 인기는 어찌 말해 야수 대파를 줘서 얼마나 인기를 줘서 얘기는 또는 나지가 로진 파세로 그래 로타사 대성자 내가서 봐 나지를 로세로 그래 이 파세에서는 Ramji thought over it, Dorjee Param Jetta Sadar, Dorjee Param Jetta Sadar, who is a chairman of some other Ramji was in this horror, but they won't enjoy you. They're really issues also. There is the talking, they're born with that, thoughts are on the Rabbi was a case of your heart and I young, and the water she was born there. That used to just have it at the born, something to play, let me know it. But talk about them, Monam too much, Kasaka, Monam, Chibati, Achla, that on the edge.
And then in the end, the fifth point is the prayer or dedication. And it says, if the wish-fulfilling jewel of the two accumulations is not polished by aspiration, the results we have hoped for will not arise. Thus, apply yourself earnestly in dedication. So here, the two accumulations. The two accumulations are the accumulation of the cause, that is merit, and the accumulation of the result, the fruition, which is wisdom, primordial wisdom. So what is the accumulation of merit or the cause? So first, the mind is like the seed of a flower, and that seed is planted into the ground, into a field. And what kind of field are we talking about here? There's basically two kinds of fields. There is the higher and the lower fields. The higher field is referring to all the different religious practitioners around the world of various traditions. All of the spiritual practitioners in the world are Sangha. And the Sangha is a vast field to accumulate merit, a good field to plant that seed. So we should regard all the different beliefs, the faiths in this world as the same, as good, and develop faith in them, and let go of doubts and wrong views towards them. So that's the first field, the higher field towards whom we develop faith. And then the lower field is when we see suffering, then whoever suffers becomes a field toward whom we develop compassion. For example, when you see a sentient being that is suffering and you feel compassion for them, then at first it seems that you are doing something good to them, but actually that feeling of compassion is your own greatest benefit. You are accumulating the cause of merit. So there is two fields, the higher field and the lower field, and actually our feeling towards them is the same, but we call it devotion of faith when directed to higher beings, and we call it compassion when directed to suffering beings. And so in brief, what happens when we accumulate merit is that the self-cherishing mind, and along with that all our doubts and wrong views, all come to an end. And then when they all come to an end, when they disappear, then we perfect the accumulation of wisdom. And that is, you then realize the nature of your mind, your own Buddha nature. And here it says you're polishing the accumulations by aspiration. For example, when you polish a diamond, the more you polish the diamond, the more luminous, brilliant it will become. And so likewise, the qualities of the Buddha are already complete within your mind, but when you polish these qualities, then they become apparent. Those qualities will reveal themselves. And then finally, that is the accumulation of wisdom, which is the result. So these are the two accumulations. And then for the aspiration, prayer, or dedication, whatever virtue you practice, whether it is conceptual or non-conceptual virtue, it is always important to dedicate that virtue. And it is said that actually the enlightened activities of all the Buddhas of the three times, they actually come from their aspirations. So the aspiration is actually very meaningful, very powerful. Also, this gathering, for example, we call it a Monlam. Monlam means aspiration or prayer festival, a prayer celebration. And so, and actually Monlams are held everywhere, all over the world. And they are held, these aspiration ceremonies are held because of their significance, because they are so meaningful. So therefore it says you're sealing all virtues accumulated in the 3 times, and samsara and nirvana, free from any reference point of the 3 spheres. And so we've said here the dedication that is free from the reference point of the 3 spheres. And so now it might be a bit confusing at first, because you might wonder that so if it is without any reference, then without any concept, free from any concept of duality, then what is it that is to be dedicated at all? And so we need to then here understand the delineation between the reference point and when we have a reference point and when there is no more reference point. So basically we are talking about the connection between the relative and the ultimate truth. So on a relative level, we have a perception of self and other, a dualistic perception. And for as long as we have that perception, there is self and other, and there are experiences of happiness and suffering. There are the 6 realms of samsara. There are the 3 spheres. There are self, and there's other, and there's all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana. But then on the ultimate level, we speak about the absence of the 3 spheres, where the 3 spheres do not exist. There's no more reference point of 3 spheres. And so what that means is that ultimately, all of these phenomena lack any true inherent existence. For example, it is like you have like a pile of ice, like an iceberg, that is huge. So it is there is this big block of ice. But if you melt it with the warmth of bodhicitta, it is gone. So even though there is this iceberg, you still understand that ice, the real nature of that ice is actually water. And so with that understanding, we can dedicate without a reference point to the 3 spheres, knowing that things lack inherent existence. So although there is a duality, we also know that when we attain the state of enlightenment, there is no more duality. In primordial awareness, there is no duality. So knowing the ultimate truth, and you dedicate, when someone dedicates with that knowledge of the ultimate truth, then that person also knows that such dedication because ultimately there is no duality. That is why through my dedication I can actually benefit others, and also temporarily you can benefit others, or dedications become beneficial because you have developed love and compassion on the relative level.
Maha Onde Kamjeji Usumda Sakmatan Yube Geve Tawandi Jikten Sumgons Korwe Jubye Geve Innate Virtue Ran Sajete Sar Mumbar Benjurwar Dadam Dakya Kamje La Davarsipi Ga Nebarsipi Gek Father Jipe Jing Longite Dudam Duje Jinkorki Dorjee Mana Padam Nyambe Sentin Samje Deva Dang Dunga Dang Nyurja Saja Chimbo Choge Mudra Hopar Dorjee.
May the roots of virtue accumulated in the three times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana not turn into the eight worldly concerns, the four causes of samsara and states of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. May all mother sentient beings, especially the circles of demons and all enemies who hate me and others, obstructors who harm us, adverse circumstances and demons who lead us astray, have happiness, be free from suffering, and may they swiftly attain the supreme accomplishment of Mahamudra.
노마시마타는 노마스마키키노 피노치라에서 데라 드리랑기디 사고 기어서 하더라 나도 산도 드리랑기 대는 세계 타기로서 그렇게 좀 맞대 그래서 사기 타기로서 하는 게 마찬가지 대진적으로 또 대. 유럽에서 와서 쉬기 일도 기반이 이제 다른 세계이 사게 가가 말이 세계 타기 사게가 몇십년 또 대참을 요다 요게 말아 내가 로를 주었대 왕 뒤에 받고 살때 대다로 차리에 그 오늘도 밤에 가서 타투도 오는 이거 말 내가 로를 주었대 사지 좀 내가 온통 로를 그네 펴서 로를 그나도 살이 제대로해서는 다른 다섯 밤에 봤다 내가 그네 사바다인지 그네 고좀 늘고 다 또들 뒤에 들어가는 호화 차리에 그래서 마도가 날리긴 호화가 인지 삼아세리 때문에 지금 마도가 돈이 있는 통수로 말에 때문에 좀 몰래서
So just now we have said dedicating those roots of virtue accumulated in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana. And so you bring to mind all the roots of virtue accumulated by the Buddhas of the 3 times who abide in the pure aspects, in the pure states of mind, and also the virtues accumulated by all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara, even the slightest virtue. The virtue of the 3 times is that you can also actually dedicate the virtues accumulated in the past, because maybe you have done something in the past that is good, but you maybe didn't have the best of intentions, and so for that reason that good act might become spoiled. So now you can rectify that and bring that again back to mind and again dedicate it properly. And then you can dedicate all the future virtues that are going to be accumulated and all of those virtues, acts that you are practicing right now. So all of that you can bring to mind and dedicate, and then you dedicate it just as the Buddhas of the 3 times have done. And the essence of how they dedicate is bodhicitta. It is the mind of love. So the moment love arises, even if just a moment of love arises, and whatever you do in that moment becomes very beneficial. That is the root of virtue. So the virtue is not determined by the size of the outer object that you're giving, for example, but it has to do with the strength of your faith and your compassion and your love. That is what we call root of virtue that we are dedicating. And so even the slightest happiness that you encounter comes from that mind of love. So that mind of love is what we mean with the root of virtue, and that is being dedicated. And when we dedicate it, our aspirations are accomplished by virtue of 3 powers. There's 3 powers that accomplish our aspirations. And first of all, for example, someone who has taken a refuge vow, there's actually, or any vow, there's actually a big difference in all the virtue that they practice thereafter. So in other words, someone who has taken a refuge vow, whatever good they do afterwards will become more powerful than anything one does without the refuge vow or any other vow. And that is because when you take the refuge vow, for example, you are becoming like a citizen of the Buddhist country. And along with that, you have certain citizen rights, for example, or powers. For example, you become American citizen, and along with that, you are endowed with various rights. And so, for this reason, it is said that whatever vow you take, but if you take one vow, then whatever virtue you practice afterwards becomes more powerful because you are endowed with those rights and those powers. And so now those three powers that accomplish our aspirations is, number one, the power of your own intention, and that is to have the wish to benefit all sentient beings. And when that mind arises, that is the intention of all the other Buddhas as well. And that's the second power. The second power is the compassion of all the Buddhas. And then the third power is, it is called here the innate virtue. The innate virtue refers to your own Buddha nature, or it is called the power of Dharmadhatu. And on that basis, Buddhas and sentient beings are indivisible. So we have those three powers when we make an aspiration, and that is why our aspirations will become accomplished. And so temporarily, our love and compassion arise, and as a result of that, ultimately, dualistic grasping falls apart. The Buddha had himself said, beings are obscured by adventitious stains, and these stains need to be removed. So all practice is really all about removing those adventitious stains, these temporary stains. And we remove them by temporarily, first of all, cultivating love and compassion. And as a result of that, ultimately by realizing non-duality. And so this is how we dedicate here. So ideally, one dedicates without a dualistic view, without a reference point. But for as long as there are self and other, then it is necessary, it is very necessary to first cultivate immeasurable love and immeasurable compassion. Because if you only cultivate that, then gradually, actually, you will realize the nature of emptiness just naturally. And that is why immeasurable love really is most important.
그래서 다 모르고지 texture나 절강도 하도 리치볼이 인서 그바 이 공항다정을 이제 삼십 저비냐면 이제 뭐야 하도 가지고리 나비 저다 보면 좀 하도 가지고리.
Page 60, Evolution word is 57.
So remember she said this prayer book for us, and that is really extremely important because all these prayers contain really are very important to practice for us. So we had put them all together so we can recite them together, and you should also continue to practice them on your own, continue to read those prayers. These are really very important prayers in general for in any Buddhist tradition.
Yeah.
Bye.
Actually, for the empowerment, there still is the Samaya to take, and so in general now, whatever empowerment you receive from whichever tradition or lineage, from whichever lama, and any empowerment of the secret mantra has commitments to it, and so each empowerment has their own branch samayas. And then also there's a root samaya. And so regarding the branch samayas, now it depends on your own like life conditions and whether or not you actually have the opportunity to engage in practice. So if you have all the conditions and if you have the opportunity, then it is good to follow all of these branch samayas, such as reciting the sadhana every day and so on. But then, now there's also those who don't have the opportunity, don't have the conditions. And so it is said for them then, what is most important is the root or the life force of the empowerment, which is the root samaya. And so the point here is that if you have the opportunity, the conditions to engage in practice, but still don't do it, then that is not okay. So that, for example, refers to the lamas and the monks and so on, and they have nothing else to do really, and so they have opportunities to practice continuously, and so they really should engage in practice and to follow all of these like samayas and commitments. But then there is those sentient beings who really want to practice and who do have a lot of devotion. But then it is due to the forces of their karmas also that even though they want to practice, they don't have the opportunity because they have so many things to do in their lives. So then for those who do want to practice but who just don't have the outer conditions, the opportunity, then for them what is most important is the root samaya, which is the mind of bodhicitta, and that is also the life force of the empowerment.
지금 상태에往受到这些我当时在就我哈国龙毛我都上就是上个前面把这上来了，如果这样他让你我当上就是哈国龙的，我当上就全部想这个挂的哦，当然把哈国那样，我都上就才到满天呐，我吃过有嘛的，大些有嘛的，早上当时我上就才没吃过这个，这样子，他卡西一样的。你要拍嘛，如果小白去，我反正有些他这个过来，这个这个松子的，他到上去之后，我这个养养可能加个弄这个他这个方法是。你打不了去，如果打过来，那你这个这话的，他不知道是如何的用啊，你用。这边是有嘛？我这个一般这个是有嘛？
So regarding the benefits of receiving and empowerment and also the samayas, actually often people ask me a lot of questions about that, and that is why I educated myself and read some of the scriptures. And so what I found in one scripture, there was a text that it talks about the benefits of receiving an empowerment, and in there it says that if you receive an empowerment, and your entire life you never actually really practice that deity, there's still great benefits, because first you receive the empowerment because you have faith, devotion, and then the rest of your life, if you only hold on to love, to bodhicitta, and remember the deity, then even if you don't really know all the details of the generation stage and so on, if you just recognize the deity, remember the deity, and cultivate love, then as a result of having received empowerment, then the benefits, the fruition of this empowerment will ripen after 7 lives.
사방 돌아 새로지 말하기 오지는 맹그런 사기 여타 지키고 빠지는 이 사기 시절 대체적으로 희한히 용세의 대시조가 그래와래 여기까지 되겠지.
Also, unprotected legs over and Maha for each volunteers or volunteers, we step forward first. So first, the ordained Sangha, the Ramas and so on, you receive empowerment, and after that, please the volunteers step forward, because I would like to offer you a gift.
首先呢，请这个出家僧接受灌顶，然后接下来是法会的义工们接受灌顶，那仁波切会跟法会的义工结缘这个念珠。
Samnan Sarity, now Rochoris or Rochek. One chief and now Rochoris, Rochek.
有借中文翻译的法友，请记得把这个翻译机交回来，谢谢跟耳机。外面也有很多这个中午这个午餐的，大家可以随喜带回家。There are a lot of leftover food for lunch. You could feel free to help yourself.